Hey everyone, my name is Rooster, and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's video, I have an exciting match for you guys where mountains get played, and I try out Charge Shot Arclight very early on because it got a bit of a buff, and I thought, well, the matchup here seemed pretty good for me to try it out. Charge Shot, boosting attack by 300%, but increasing attack interval, making it slightly worse against Chaff, means that it is an ideal counter to stuff like this, where your opponent starts out with a lot of mid-sized units, like Hounds and Steel Ball. And because Hound has been so popular lately, I thought, maybe Charge Shot can be a counter to the Hounds. I have made a video yesterday about, just playing Range and Shockwave into this particular build, which worked just fine, but I wanted to know, like, can you actually also go for Charge Shots? Is that viable? So that's what this game is all about. My opponent here is a Supply Specialist. I am a Training Specialist, so I'll be able to get a level 2 Arclight right off the bat. I have Steel Balls as well. I'm going to buy a double Crawler, and deciding to play on that right side of the field because left side does have the double building. Opponent here decides to sell the building on the left side, kind of gambling that I will choose the open side of the field to attack. And yeah, we will be in a bit of a headbutt situation here, but with me being more aggressive and my opponent's kind of defending. And let's see how this goes. I should be favored. Intensive training, level 2 Arclight, very powerful on round 1, especially into these type of units. The level 2 Arclight definitely can even go toe-to-toe with the Steel Balls, at least in terms of, taking them down relatively quickly. And that's what we can see here. Arclight's doing a really good job, even teaming up, making sure that the Steel Balls are gone, and then the Hounds without any techs are just not really able to do too much. So what I was expecting here is my opponent to go into the Chamber Compression build, but, you can also play this with Titans, and in fact, my opponent here didn't even have Chamber Compression on the bar, so never mind about that. But I thought, well, if they decide to go further into Hounds, which does look to be the case, then this could still be a pretty useful tech. So round 2, I really wanted to get into Chamber or into Charge Shot if possible. Another intensive training gets shown, which I could pick, but I might be in some trouble there money-wise. So I just decided to skip and sell, I believe. Or rather, perhaps I took the mobile beacon. Looks to be the mobile beacon, as I do want to try and move in here on the right, and the beacon is slightly cheaper, but I did do the math to make sure that I could still afford Charge Shot at 150. And then we're going to add an air unit, as is kind of common on round 2. Make sure that you've got your air covered. In this case, I'm going to opt for a Phantom Ray and kind of play it more like Castwood, with this beacon into the diagonal, and then we'll likely add some very deep flanks later on to be able to try and pressure that tower. Now the problem with Charge Shot is that, as I mentioned before, it does increase your attack interval, so you become a lot weaker to crawlers, even though you get stronger against the mid-sized units here, which my opponent does have a lot of. So the question is it worth the trade-off, right? If my opponent keeps building more expensive or more mid-sized units, then it'll be good. If they decide to go more heavily into stuff that either I can't kill or chaff, then, I might be into some trouble. Here, though, we do just fine, as we managed to beat our opponent, get the tower debuff. Only a couple crawlers are left. The left side does get debuffed, but not on time, at least not for it to matter. And so our first 2 rounds here are very solid. Happy with the tempo that I have. My opponent isn't the healthiest either, so that could prove to be a bit of an issue for them. Wasp shows up on round number 3. My opponent immediately picks it. It is kind of the best pick usually whenever it shows up this early, but I really was not expecting this. And it turns out that we are in fact playing against someone playing the round 3 Titan strat, which does also involve a very similar type of Hound Crawler positioning. But I hadn't quite noticed that my opponent saved up so much cash that they were able to already purchase it here. And yeah, now things get a little bit tricky. I do have the Wasp in the back right. I decide to add another Arclight. In fact, I believe 2. And I also grab the range enhancement tech immediately to try and get ahead against my opponent. We have a couple of Arclight levels as well, so the damage is there, but is it going to be enough to take down a round 3 Titan? I'm not too sure. The chaff here does trickle in at the correct timings, meaning that my Arclights don't end up instantly dying, and some of the Arclights luckily aren't locked on to that mountain, and able to help out with the chaff clear and killing the hounds. Note as well that my middle crawler made it so that the enemy units on the left side got pulled towards the middle, making sure I don't get debuffed. However, we don't quite have the damage here to finish off the mountain, and the opponent's wasps kind of making good use of the mountain's tankiness, take down all of my air units, so I lose round number 3. And now I kind of wish I had Shockwave instead, because Shockwave doesn't care too much if you get locked onto a big unit. The Shockwave will still hit, you know, any crawlers that kind of pass through or pass beside it. And yeah, with Charge Shot, that's not really the case. I could still go Shockwave, but it would be my 3rd tech. And right now, I seriously need to get something like a Melting Point to be able to kill this mountain. So yeah, I was getting worried here that the Charge Shot and the reduced chaff clearing speed would be a massive problem, because I'm now going to get damage from the melting points. So I feel like I don't really need the damage boost from the Charge Shot anymore. But let's have a look at how this is going to go. I'm a bit afraid as well of loose formation eventually. That is a massive problem for Charge Shot Arclight to deal with. And I will likely need to get into Mustangs here at some point as additional chaff clear, which is kind of common either way whenever you try to play Charge Shot Arclight. I'm going to beacon the wasps to the side, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want them to shoot at these wasps from the side rather than getting locked onto the mountain and then not being able to fight back. So that's the reason we are doing that. Left side is moving in. Thankfully, I do have that magnetic barricade here to slow down the Mustangs and hopefully prevent a debuff from happening. But yeah, my melting point sadly gets stuck, and while it is going to lock onto that mountain, the mountain fights back and instantly takes down my DPS unit. I have my wasps left, but I think the Mustangs will be able to clear those up. So I'm going to take a lot of damage on round 4 as well, over 1,000, and suddenly things are not looking too good. I'm really not liking the position that I'm in with the Arclights, and I feel like I am still miles off of my melting points being in a comfortable spot to be able to deal with these enemy Titans. Round number 5, and we do get unit reinforcements. Again, we get Fire Badger. I decide to sell it. I could try and play it, but Badger is not exactly very good into Mountain. It is a very vulnerable target that Mountain doesn't mind shooting at. And I felt like I really needed to get the money to invest into, you know, my melting points for now, and then probably go something like Mustang later, which would offer the same amount of chaff clear, but be a bit less vulnerable to the Mountain, as opposed to, you know, using the Badgers here, which have kind of a similar body profile as Arclight, which also doesn't have a good time against the Mountain. A 3rd one shows up. I do go for 2 more melting points here with the bonus cash. Go for range enhancement as well. And once again, going to beacon this wasp to the side to try and make sure it can catch that. I'm also going to go for a missile aggressive here to try and make sure I lock on to these enemy mountains instantly. Hopefully I'll be able to do so. At least I get 1 lock on here. Perhaps temp speed would have been required, or maybe the melting point slightly further up. But at the very least, I do take down 1 of them. But yeah, where on earth did my Arclights go? I don't have a ton of chaff deployments, but yeah, the mountain just absolutely gobbles up all of my Arclights. And the little chaff there I had, even after taking Charge Shot, just vanishes. And I lose the round yet again. Even worse than before, and suddenly I find myself down to 1,200 after being well above 4k 3 rounds ago. Round number 6, heavy armor shows up. Good item, I will pick it. My melting point managed to grab a level by taking down that mountain, and tankiness here can matter in the long run. We're gonna see Firehound's Incendiary Bomb picked up for my opponent, which is usually a thing that they do eventually click. They hadn't done so just yet, but it will come now. And yeah, I decided to go loose formation here, kind of trying to make sure that the mountains will have a tougher time, the hounds as well will have a tougher time, and it's a very cheap tech. It's kind of trying to buy me a little bit of breathing room, because yeah, I lose 1 more round like I did, and that's going to be lights out. Oil here going to get used by my opponent as well on the fire round. So things perhaps not looking too good. I am going to go for the same missile, kind of hoping I would get those lock-ons. I do go for temp range. The loan comes out, of course, because I'm very nearly dead. And I decide to go for electromagnetic barrage to try and shut down those techs on the mountain. Second tech being picked here is going to be gun-launched missile, which just helps in general with chaff clear and does a good amount of damage on top of things. I mean, look at my melting point there, losing well over half of its hit points at level 1 to a level 1 gun-launched missile. While the right side here is doing okay, things are not looking too good for me. I do have a couple of wasps left, though. 3 of them. And we'll have to see how that goes. The fire that got put down might end up burning the wasps. I mean, I have to somehow end up killing. Indeed, it does. So all the Mustangs are gone. I have 3 wasps with an improved firepower control system and 60 seconds to my name to take down this one mountain. If I manage to do so, I survive. If I don't, I take 1500 damage through mountains alone. And, you know, that'll be lights out. But right now, it looks like we're gonna get very, very close. If not just succeed at taking it out. Now, I don't know where that puts me. My opponent did go fire, but, you know, that still didn't look extremely convincing to me. And, well, we do manage to kill it. So I'm still in the fight, but I have a lot of problems to solve. Also, fire there shows up, but I guess good reason here to keep your air unit or your wasp in the back and not sell it, even if it doesn't always end up doing too well. That round, it was absolutely clutch, and the opponent burning themselves with the fire they put down is a big deal. I decided to go for hounds myself with sprinkler because I felt like I can't take another incendiary bomb. The loose formation here is way too important. And so let's just try and go for the hound and, well, expect my opponent to pick the incendiary. Weirdly enough, they don't. They just decide to skip and they go for range, I believe, on the Mustangs. I go for a very aggressively placed fire, just hoping that my opponent might not shield. And yeah, burn all of the enemy chaff, perhaps some Mustangs and those hounds, allowing those melting points to lock on. Left side is rather vulnerable. Right now, I'm just kind of holding on for dear life, hoping that the chaff will pull away units over there. But I do go for a bunch of missiles, a tower level as well. Kind of investing whatever little money I have to make sure that I hedge somewhat against a tower take. But the fire lands. And that means there is a lot less in front of the mountains here to protect them. The salvos will land. This mountain will get EMP'd. That one too. Right side mountains locked onto. And a couple of Arclights still alive here, although they get locked onto the mountain instead of killing the Mustangs. Great tower timing, I will say. EMP landing, and right side melter is now collapsing, meaning that I will get to live another day. I lose one melting point there as the mountain regains its techs and then fires a gun-launched missile straight into that melter. But we get to live and see round number 8. Still not, you know, out of the woods just yet. There's a lot of things that are very scary, including, well, you know, high-level mountains, that type of thing. I decide to go for the heavy armor again. It served me pretty well. And here I decide, well, maybe I should just keep playing for, you know, cheeses or gut shots. So that's exactly what I do. And I go for armor plating phantom rays. The reason why is because my opponent is relying on Mustangs right now to get through all of these loose formation crawlers, and he doesn't have any other anti-air beside that. Mustangs at this level cannot kill level 2 armor phantom rays, so if I can just get all of them to lock onto these, I should get a default win, because it's also, you know, coincidentally their anti-air, and well, I can just guarantee a round win. I might be in trouble the round after, but, you know, right now I'm just trying to survive in any way I can. Now I think to myself, do I want to sell my Wasp? It served me really well. It even did 70,000 damage last round. But if I sell it, I can buy a third blue Phantom Ray and even make a level 3 one with the intensive training being back off cooldown. And I feel like that is worth it. So I take a bit of a risk. I buy another one and I level this one with the improved firepower control system to level 3. And then beacon it straight in so that it locks onto the mountain, starts chunking it. We might not even need the melting point for that one. And as we can see, all of those Mustangs are locked onto it and dealing 0 damage, meaning that my loose formation crawlers are creating some problems. Right side is moving in. Hopefully I'll be able to lock on. Left side still looks like it's struggling, but it's kind of like 1 level 1 melter versus 3 mountains, which of course isn't exactly the fairest of fights. Right side going well, melting points. I still have one alive, and it looks like I really needed the gut shot here, as only one melting point. Level 2 with that heavy armor manages to survive, and aside from that, it is just going to be the Phantom Rays. And so we'll go to round number 9. Not the worst amount of damage. My opponent now down to 1200. If I somehow manage to stabilize, may be able to win here. I decided to go for Mustangs myself with range and cunning rounds. And the reason I do this is because it is the best counter to loose formation crawlers. Mustangs by themselves are not bad into it, but you can boost your clearing of loose formation even further by going for the cunning round tech. So that's why I do this. My opponent went for it last round. And yeah, that does mean I can't buy more melting points. I would have loved to be able to put some melting points over here, but right now it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. And I am prioritizing the fact that I need chaff clear. If I didn't click charge shot and I just went shockwave, this wouldn't have been a problem, by the way. But yeah, I need to fix this issue I have. My opponent goes for Raidens all the way in the back with EMP to shut down the armor, but those are only level 1 Raidens. And my Phantom Ray is level 4 at the moment. Even if you do take down its armor enhancement, it's still relatively beefy. And will take a little bit of time to take down. I'm going to beacon some of them back, because at the end of the day, I only need one Phantom Ray to tank the Mustangs. Doesn't matter how many are locked on to a single one, as long as it has the armor, it won't go down. And that way I kind of have late Phantom Rays, perhaps arriving at a bad timing, because I expected my opponent to counter this play. I will say though, I thought they would just go anti-aircraft ammunition on the mountain, since they probably don't need the bonus damage that much, and they have some levels available on the mountain too, which would make up for, well, the loss of attack against the melting points after clicking that tech. But we'll have to see how this goes. EMP here landing rather well, but it doesn't look like the Raidens are managing to do too much. They don't have range for the time being, because my opponent went EMP, and my melters are managing to take some of them down. I still have this one Phantom Ray left. It does get EMP'd now, but some of the Mustangs are still locked on, and the right side now collapsing, taking down one more mountain. I will lose my tower, but the EMP manages to land yet again. It looks like I do survive one more round, with my opponent now being brought down to roughly the same amount of hit points as myself, down to 300. Surely this round will be the last. And we get unit reinforcements on top of things. My opponent here decides to go for Marksman Specialist, or not Marksman Specialist, but just the Marksman drop. Perhaps just clicking AA to be able to get rid of those Phantom Rays. As for myself, I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I decided to go for the Vortexes because at level 6 and with the cheap tank techs, they are an absolute pain to deal with, especially when you put them all the way in the corners like this. You know, even if they do get EMP'd, that takes a while to take down. Opponent trying to put down an oil. And I decide to go for a melting point play on the left now. Finally, we get quadruple Phantom Ray with armor from the opponent. And I guess just trying to make sure that the Mustangs get stuck. A very similar play to what I did. But of course I do have my own Phantom Rays to fight back. And I have some melting points. I should be able to get through it eventually. We'll have to see if it stalls for long enough that I can't lock on to the enemy mountains. Left side attack, intensive training to make a level 2 melting point. A crawler here to tank the mountain and its gun-launched missile. And the Mustang right behind to help it chaff clear. I'm just kind of hoping that I can get an early lock-on and perhaps get a debuff was the idea. On top of that, I also thought they might at some point try to attack on this side, which, yeah, we'll have to see whether that happens. Doesn't look to be the case. I do go for a barrier, but the oil is going to land regardless. Doesn't seem like the fire is going to connect, though. Thankfully, I still have those sprinkler hounds, making sure that the fire doesn't land. So we get to keep our chaff. Melting point on this side doesn't manage to lock on to the mountain, but it does manage to at least take down the Phantom Rays. And here we get some really nice lock-ons. Mountain going to fall. Right side, same thing. Only 2 mountains remain. This one gets locked on as well. I still have a little bit of chaff in the form of my arc lights and my Mustangs. And it looks like I will be able to pull this one back nearly from the grave, as the melting points eventually managed to win. Very, very scary game. Not gonna lie, I generally wouldn't recommend charge shot. I think it's pretty good into things like elite, because there you get to level really, really quickly, and it's kind of hard for elite to spam chaff usually just because of the additional cost. So their boards tend to be a little bit less chaff heavy. But yeah, charge shot just doesn't quite feel amazing, especially when your opponent goes for a line like this and builds a really early Titan. I really wish I had Shockwave and, you know, not such a high attack interval. Now, what should my opponent have done? I think on round number 9, after they saw this, they probably should have just gone for something like AA Mountain is what I would like to try. Because I'm not a big fan of the Raidens. They're just a little bit low... low level, and that's a very high level Phantom Ray, going to be a bit of a pain to deal with. So let's go AA and level this mountain. And then honestly, I just kind of want to try and attack this side if possible. So maybe I just sell this and then try to go for a play on this side of the board. It's a bit awkward because this crawler's in the way, so I'll have to put this over here, I guess. Like so. And then I'll also have to beacon that unit somewhere over here to really try and pressure this well, poorly defended tower, frankly, that I had. I could go for a missile as well to try and make sure that if there's any chaff, I don't have to deal with it. And aside from that, I guess we could just level the Mustangs in this case. That leaves us still with 100. Let's put a missile back here and back here in case we get flanked. And see how this goes. So yeah, there was nothing on that side, and the mountain here is actually doing a pretty decent job. Melting Point not going to be able to lock onto it from the looks of things, as there are a bunch of crawlers in the way. Missile going to land. Is the mountain going to be able to find the tower is the question. It's getting closer, that's for sure. The Melting Point's still kind of stuck. The EMP does land, but I managed to get the tower, and with that I managed to close the distance towards these Melting Points. And that would have indeed been the win. So just going for aerial munition there would have actually made the difference. No need to diversify the board. Mountain kind of has everything it needs on the bar already. And yeah, especially against Phantom Ray here, the amount of damage that it provides, especially with levels, is more than enough to take them down, even when they're level 4 with armor. So that was the find. Interesting game though, you know, kind of fortunate that I managed to survive, but then we managed to find all of the correct, well, kind of gut shots and, yeah, punishing the things that my opponent hadn't covered. They went down the wrong line with the Raiden. I should have lost this game probably, but, you know, it's an interesting showcase. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and down in the comments below what you thought about it. And if you've ever seen a game that, you know, was this much on a knife's edge. If you want to stay up to date with latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.